Welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast.
Okay.
Yo.
Welcome to episode 3 of Bhagavad Gita podcasts, where we're going through the Bhagavad Gita for those of you who are interested, and especially those who are doing the Bhagavad Gita course.
Yeah, nice little 5-part mini overview of the Bhagavad Gita, the greatest gem of Vedic wisdom possibly available. That's sandwiched in the Mahabharata at the pinnacle point when all the people are watching, all the people of Earth are watching. And we got copies. If you want a copy, shoot us a quick message.
Yeah, anyone who wants a Bhagavad Gita, please get in touch. So in episode 1, we tried to set the scene of the Bhagavad Gita in the context of the Mahabharata, and went into Arjuna having a mental breakdown, and then Krishna trying to give him perspective, specifically knowledge of the difference between the body and the soul. Then we went into working without getting karmic reactions, trying to very briefly give points that are described in chapters 3 and 5. We talked about accepting a spiritual teacher and performing sacrifice to get transcendental knowledge, as Krishna explains in chapter 4. Accepting a spiritual teacher, I think I said that. Yeah. And then chapter 6, we touched upon yoga, and the main sort of pivotal point of yoga is to positively engage the mind.
Yeah, control the mind, be tranquil, be satisfied. Yeah, it's awesome. So I think this section, because we're doing this as part of the Bhagavad Gita course at Atma, and I think this third section is called the love supreme.
That's what the lesson's called.
Yeah, so we're just gonna that's the idea. That's Krishna basically. That's the supreme kind of reciprocator of love, isn't it?
Yeah, the Love Supreme. It's an old blues album, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this I think it's about God.
Is it?
So
makes sense.
There's a nice name, the Love Supreme, because Krishna, the word Krishna means the most attractive, the reservoir of all pleasure, all love. Like naturally, we want to love and we want to be loved. And Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, Ham savasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravatite demati bhajanti mam buddhi bhava samvitaha. Krishna explains that Krishna is the absolute truth, the source of all material and spiritual worlds. And those who engage in a loving relationship with him, or those who know this fact, engage in a loving relationship with him and worship him with all their hearts. And then a few verses after that, Krishna goes into the intimate exchange that happens when the soul practicing yoga starts to develop that relationship with the superconsciousness, with Krishna. And the benefits of that are Krishna from within the heart starts to clean all the nastiness and unhappiness, ignorance from the heart, and begins to light up our consciousness.
Whereabouts is this now in the Gita?
That's in the 10th chapter.
The opulence, is that?
No, this is 10.8, 10.9, 10.10.
Okay.
10.11.
This is the seed. This is like the...
These are the seed verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Those are the most important ones. But yeah, in chapter 7, Krishna says, first he says, Arjun, please listen to this. If you listen to this, what I'm about to tell you, you will know how to have full consciousness of me. Chatranu, please listen. And then he says, Manasahu sahasrasu kashchit yatati siddhaya yati api siddhanam kashrimam veditattvadaha. Those who engage in this are very, very rare. They're very rare people. They're like needles in the haystack.
Yeah, there's not many people or living beings in the universe that are actually trying to understand the source of all creation. Do you know what I'm saying? Like in this room, for instance, there's probably millions of tiny infinitesimal bacteria, which all have some kind of really low level of consciousness. But like according to the Vedas, those are souls, the same as we're souls, you know. And they have so much like spiritual potential or just potential, but at the moment they're kind of filtered by that body, by that sort of low level of consciousness. But like that's just in this one room. So think about the entire universe. There's like infinite masses and masses and masses and masses of souls. And out of all of those infinite souls, there's only a couple that are even human beings. Like probably a very small fraction.
Fraction of the total, yeah.
Yeah, fraction of the total.
Nice.
Have that capacity to even speak and question anything, full stop. Like most animals, they're not really questioning anything beyond where can I get my next meal or where can I sleep tonight. Like that's pretty much the depth of an animal's thought as far as I've never asked one, but
yeah,
like externally that's what I see. They don't seem to be into,
they don't contemplate higher things. You know,
generally
they're not so philosophical. You don't see a bunch of cats going and, you know, building and having a church and worshipping. So the human form is rare, offers the facility for the living being to understand its own existence. So again, a human form is rare. Then trying to understand some philosophical thought, understand the meaning of life, that's rarer still.
Yeah. Within the human category, there's only a percentage that is even questioning.
They say there's theists and then there's atheists, but you have agnostics, but most people are what they call apatheists.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, well maybe there's some spirituality, or maybe the religions have got it right, or maybe science is right, maybe there's the meaning of life. It was all a mechanical sort of explosion, etc., etc. But anyway, I don't really care. I'm just going to have another beer and watch the football, or
whatever it is.
Yeah, so
just going to get on with my life because it doesn't really affect my life either way, isn't it?
Yeah, most people don't really. Oh, I don't want to get. I don't want to think about. Don't want to get into that. And so that's the state of most people, according to the Vedic literature. So then, I mean, I was a bit like that myself. I was always trying to work out what the goal of my life was. What am I as a spiritual being? And I got frustrated because there wasn't that many people who are on the same sort of wavelength. I used to think, well, a lot of this mundane stuff doesn't really matter to me. I need to know the greater purpose. That was just, where I was coming from. So those who actually do question and need to add that drive to find out the answers, they're very rare.
Yeah.
And Krishna explains, and those who have endeavoring to actually understand Krishna, they're rarest still. And those people who actually know Krishna are even rarer. So anyone who comes to Bhakti Yoga, they're a very rare, special kind of person.
Yeah, it's pretty like exalted position. Like when you zoom it out, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was in chapter 7.
Chapter 7, and Krishna starts explaining a bit more about himself and his relationship with material universe, with all of reality. Later on in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains how he is for example, in Srimad Bhagavatam, it says, Vedanti tat vidas tatvat jnanam advayam brahmati paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. Explains there's these different levels of realization, of God realization, and that impersonal oneness. Krishna explains that he is superior to that. That is just one of his energies, and understanding Krishna is the topmost experience of the living being.
So you're talking about, so that verse you just quoted is talking about like the higher levels of God realization, isn't it? That understanding of like merging into like this light and beyond. Like there's these high exalted levels that we hear about, like Buddhism is about merging. But actually something I always find quite interesting is that kind of wherever we're at, we're realizing some level of divinity, some level of God's energy, whatever level we're at consciously dictates what amount of God's energy we see, isn't it? So like if you are an animal, you see all of the atoms as food that you can enjoy. Like we talked about it on previous podcasts, like these different levels of consciousness. But it just reminds me, there's a really nice verse in the Gita. I think it's 9:36, and it's the only naturally rhyming verse in English. And it says, "For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, and he is never lost to me.
That's in the 6th chapter.
Is it 6? I messed up.
9.
9.
Pashanti Sarvatra.
Yeah, Yomam Pasati Saratas. But the one before it says that you can see the divinity in every living being, and like, because that's the idea, is like to be able to see, like to be able to link everything to Krishna is like a very exalted way of seeing the world, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's something we have to practice, because it does link, when we talked about in the 6th chapter, yoga, trying to control the mind and to engage the mind in doing good for others. And a lot of those verses in that 6th chapter say seeing everyone as a spiritual spark, as part of Krishna. And it's something that takes practice. So by hearing these things, by engaging in that type of philosophical thought, okay, I need to try and see everyone as a spiritual soul, everyone part of Krishna, then we start to train ourselves to see things like that.
Yeah, and I think if we can get to a level where we are starting to see just a glimpse of that, like we can see that actually all other people that we meet and all different animals and everything is very special and not so different from us. It's kind of like our family members in one sense, because if we're in material consciousness, we only really show love and give love to our family and to like these tiny little particles which we feel are linked to us, like physically on like a bodily level. Like I came from my mother's stomach or whatever, so I show her some love, or this is my cousin, or like people are linked. But actually, the Bhakti yogi, he sees that every single soul is a part of his family. They're all worthy of love, and they're worthy of respect and kindness. That's that verse: the humble sage sees by virtue of true knowledge. Yeah. Equally, the learned brahmana, so like the exalted kind of learned person. The cow,
elephant.
Yeah, and the dogs and the dog eaters. Yeah. Like he sees it all. He sees them on an equal level, on that equal platform. Yeah. And I guess that's the idea, is like, because you just touched on it about how Krishna reciprocates, isn't it? Like,
yeah, because like Bhakti yoga is, like you said, to increase our loving propensity to not just a localized family, but to everyone, and that is done by giving our love to Krishna. We have a loving propensity, and we need to properly engage it. Not everyone will admit that we have a loving propensity, but if you think about it, you do. You want to love and be loved, and Krishna is the supreme object of that love is Krishna. When one has love for Krishna, then we automatically love all living beings. Like Prabhupada said many times, and it's in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you water the root of a tree, and all the leaves and the branches, the fruits and the flowers, they get nourished. If you just try and water each individual leaf, then it doesn't quite work.
Yeah, like some drops may get down to the roots eventually, or
eventually it'll die.
Yeah, there won't be enough to sustain that desire for reciprocation of love. So similarly, like we've got our family, our close immediate people that are related to us, and if we pour all of our love into those people exclusively without seeing the connection to the whole, then it is like that. We're watering the leaves, but we're never getting the full reciprocation that we need to feel satisfied in the heart, isn't it?
Yeah, we're limiting ourselves. We're limiting our loving propensity. And going back to the 7th chapter, so that's where Krishna says, that such a person is rare, who engages in this kind of lifestyle. He also describes 4 kinds of people who will engage in this sort of activity, and 4 kinds of people who just never will. Yeah. Then we'll go on to, because there's another interesting part that's in this lesson, is like a discussion on death. Yeah. So in the 8th chapter.
Maybe we can, because you caught my interest with that. You said there's 4 kinds of people that definitely will take to this path of self-discovery, self-realization. They're more open to it.
Well, no, they Srila Prabhupada said if you're not, if one isn't engaged in Krishna consciousness, then he put them in the category of the 4 other kind of people.
Okay, so what are the four kinds that would take it up?
That would, they're the person. So if someone, so all these people are what what Krishna calls is like pious.
Yeah.
So if someone's suffering, if why am I suffering in this world?
Yeah.
Maybe I better see what Krishna has to say in the Bhagavad Gita.
So that distress and dissatisfaction causes you to look for other answers.
Causes you to look, you're distressed. Or it says if you're after wealth, if you want some money, okay, please God, give me a nice house, give me a nice car, give me a nice,
you find that
beach by the sea.
A lot in like America, you have these big mega churches, and people are just like praying for. Oh, I just wish I was a movie star. Or
Please, Father, give us some money.
Yeah.
So, and again in the 7th chapter, Krishna does talk about other kinds of worship. He says, "Karmas terhita jnana prapadyante nadevata." Those who worship demigods, Krishna says they are less intelligent. Which is very interesting. It's if anyone says, well, Ganesh and Durga, they're all equal to Krishna, well, that's not according to the Bhagavad Gita. Generally any Hindu worth their salt will accept authority from the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna very clearly says, Kamastar Hittigana Prabhadhyatena Devata, that those who worship demigods are overcome by material desires. I want to worship this so my son will go to college, we'll get a good house, and I can go to heaven. The other kinds of people surrendered to Krishna are one who is inquisitive. I wonder what the Hare Krishnas are all about. And then they'll, okay, this is quite enlightening. And then those who are just hungry for the truth.
Yeah.
Then you get the 4 kind of people who don't surrender.
So they were the 4. So you got the distressed, the people looking for money, the people who are curious. They just want to know a bit more about what's the meaning of life.
I'll go to the Hare Krishnas on a Tuesday.
And then like the super driven, like, boom, let's try and figure out the meaning of life.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So these are 4. So I like to hear about this and just try and figure out where I was. I think I was quite distressed. I don't know about you. I was distressed and I was looking for answers, but not like in a hungry way. Just inquisitive, like what are we doing here? What is this like? Yeah. What is this strange world we live in? Like, I used to wonder, how does the oxygen not just like leave the planet? Like how are we like walking without floating away? Like what is this strange atmosphere that we exist in? Like what's going on here? I need answers. And that's why, because that's next episode, we'll get a bit into that. Next lesson, number 4 of the Gita, we get into a bit of Jnana. So if you are interested in that kind of thing, stay tuned.
Okay.
Because but yeah, I don't know about you.
I'm looking forward to it.
Which of the 4 were you?
I was probably a mix between distressed and looking for the truth.
So the top one.
But I don't know. Like you said, But again, another thing that's explained is, however you come to spiritual life, then relatively quickly one should come to the platform of trying to understand the truth or understand Krishna, because some of the qualities of Bhakti Yoga is that when you start to engaging it, then your suffering will be removed. You'll notice firsthand how when you start to practice Bhakti Yoga, distresses will recede. Yeah. But that alone isn't enough to keep you on the path. We have to change our mentality. Okay, if this is working, I want to go deeper and I want to understand Krishna more. Krishna explains this to people who are not going to go into one's called the Muda, or examples given like an ass or like a donkey. You see them like carrying this huge load. You see it in India, and they got these little legs buckling. They're working so hard just for a little bit of grass. Yeah. But there's grass everywhere. Yeah. But the donkey's like, no, I must carry this load.
So my master will give me some grass.
Yeah. So those of us who are just so attached to working, just for a little bit of money, or even though the real abundance of life we might miss out on by doing that, that we're just so absorbed in just working hard.
Yeah, you see that, like, people are multi-trillionaires. They're like million trillionaires, and really all they're actually getting out of that is they're just getting like a plate of food.
Yeah, they still eat
somewhere to sleep.
They still eat the same, size meal as someone else does in poverty. If the person could afford it. Yeah. So, even happiness experts, they explain that once you make enough money so the basic necessities of life are comfortably taken care of.
What's that? Food, shelter.
You got your food, shelter. You can pay your rent. You're not in anxiety that you're going to go starve the next day. then from that point on, there is absolutely no correlation between the human being's level of happiness and their amount of wealth, their bank balance.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So this thirst for wealth is just a complete distraction.
And that's Muda.
That's Mudha.
That's being a bit like a donkey.
Yeah. Then you have Naradama, which is just a very low life. You have Asurambhavata, those people who's just mood. They're just angry people who really why did God do this to me? If they're really they're quite sort of quite angry. And you have Maya Prityagyana. These are people who fancy themselves intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some very very intelligent and like to philosophize, but they're Maya Prityagyana. So they might be intelligent, but their intelligence is described as stolen by illusion.
Yeah.
So they're very smart, but in all the wrong ways, sort of thing.
Interesting. No, it's so that kind of categorizes a lot of, pretty much everyone falls into something along those 8 categories, isn't it? So I definitely got qualities of the bad side too, like a bit angry and but so these are the pious people, and then that's why I just wanted to like sideline into that because it's interesting. But then you started talking about death in the 8th chapter, like where we go at the time of death, bit of reincarnation action. This is where Krishna goes now from the 7th chapter to the 8th.
Yeah. Now I don't know how much, because in the lesson Tarkanath might discuss quite a bit about death, but demystifying death is quite a good concept just to touch upon, because it's Krishna in the 8th chapter does talk about where the soul goes when you leave the body, which is a very common question. Where do you go when you die? Yeah. And Krishna explains in detail how it does depend. Yam yam vabhismaram bhavam. That's a general principle. Wherever one's mind runs to at the time of death, that's wherever one takes shelter of, then that will influence where one goes in the next life.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense because if you guys have got a Bhagavad Gita and you've seen, there's a like a very famous changing bodies picture. I might be able to edit it in if I remember to the video, but I might not remember. But
it is this one, right?
Just sort of pause it and zoom in. It might be blurry, but yeah, the idea is that the body is constantly changing. So you have a child's body, then a boy's body, then a teenage body, then a grown-up body, and then an old man's body, and then the body dies. But the consciousness is continually passing through these different types of bodies. And depending like where the person's mind is at each stage dictates how that next body forms. Like for instance, I got tattoos on my legs because my mind was in like a weird place. Back when I was like 20s, I just wanted to cover myself in tattoos, like basically of like skulls and like burning panthers, kind of like dark imagery because I was in that dark headspace. So then because of that,
you wouldn't have a burning panther now if you could.
I'd probably have a burning panther, yeah. But the skulls maybe not, but that's the idea. Is like because I was in a darkish headspace, I was getting these dark symbols on my body, and then my body took the form of that kind of where my head was, and then that just continued. And now for the rest of my life, now I've got this kind of impression based on the past that's just going to be there. They call it prabdha karma, isn't it? Like your manifest karma. That's what the body is. So that's the idea. Is like the body is always changing, and depending where we're going, say we get into fitness, our body will become more physically fit. So like the old body's died, so like it's gone to us. So like my body, a body with no tattoos is gone to me now. And where the next body I took depends on where my consciousness was. So the idea is that similarly at death, if you're in a dark space, you might take a body that's a bit more like immersed in kind of ignorance. So we're talking about this bacteria floating around in the sky, which is souls, but the souls are covered by like ignorance, by darkness, so like we could take a lower form of body if our minds are in a lower place, so it might become like a pig or a squirrel or something that can't question life if we're in that dark space and we're going down that dark path, like, isn't it?
That principle you can see in this life. Your consciousness affects how your body is, and the same principle carries when you go into the next body at time of death.
And that's the idea. That's the hope. That's what Krishna says. And so, like, consciousness continuous. I've heard that been said a load of times, isn't it? So, like, wherever our mind's at, that's where we'll go. Simple as, And like, Krishna's then saying, like, you got if you fix your mind on me, then you'll obtain a body like mine, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not my body, but
a spiritual body.
A spiritual body, which isn't made of atoms and matter and like blood and flesh and.
Yeah, it's our original spiritual body.
Yeah.
We don't have an extra gross mechanical body like we've got now, made out of flesh and bone. That's not imposed upon us. That's not forced upon the soul. Like, I didn't pick this body. If I could pick my body, I would have chosen something taller, more handsome. But why am I in this body? It's because I've done activities in the past which have cultivated this body, and now my next life I'm going to prepare for another body. And Krishna then talks about different kinds of yogis, how they can, the yogis can choose when they leave the body, and they can go to different planets within this universe, etc.
But there's that verse, isn't it like the 15th chapter, where it says like you'll obtain a certain type of nose and a certain type of ear and a certain type
of senses grouped about the mind.
Yeah, so these senses are like, these bodies that we have are formed around our mind. Our mind is like subtle. But I always like this idea that I've heard a few times, like that we are, at the moment, as we speak, we have our next body and it's starting to be developed and loaded and rendered based on where our head's at. So like we're already preparing for the next body based on what we're doing in this life now. So there's that body there. Like, you heard stuff like, I think you've told me stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's getting developed, right?
Yeah, so it's like there, like a Polaroid picture, just waiting for the right time for it to pop out.
Yeah, what you do in this life, according to the Bhagavad Gita, it does matter. We are preparing for something. Now I'm just looking at time.
Yeah, we've got 26 minutes in.
Because the universal form.
Oh yeah.
And there's also chapter 12.
We've touched on 10, isn't it?
We touched on 10. If you can go to chapter 11, 12, because there's something very important in that chapter, which Tarakanth will go through in the course. But universal form, I'm not sure whether we'll cover it in the actual course.
Yeah.
So
wait, just quick overview. Chapter 10 is all about like the different opulences of Krishna, isn't it? Or is that 9? I can't remember.
10 as well, opulences of the absolute. There's 4 seed verses, and then there's lots of verses there where Krishna says...
He says like, I'm the taste in water, I'm the light of the sun, and the ability in man, the strength of the strong. Like, he explains where we can see Krishna in this world, isn't it?
Yeah, Arjun, yeah. Is that the 10th canto? Param Brahma, Param Dharma, Pavitram, Paramambhavam, Purusham, Divyam Adidevam, Majambi, boom, that. I accept, Arjuna accepts everything that Krishna said so far in the Gita. He says, okay, from hearing all this, I now accept you to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Please tell me of some of your opulences and how I can perceive you in this world.
Okay.
Then Krishna starts to explain different things that we can perceive within this world, that we can theoretically understand them to represent Krishna.
They're really good. It's an interesting chapter just to read through. There's some nice meditation. But he sums it up basically, isn't it 10:41, where he says, know that all opulent, beautiful and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. It's this idea that like everything that we appreciate in this world that we like and is interesting and beautiful,
it just
and
hints
opulent,
at Krishna's potencies.
It's just a spark just shooting off of Krishna, but Krishna is inconceivably much more than even the most that we can imagine, which is like so inconceivable. But that's how he sums up the 10th chapter basically. And then it goes into the universal form, which is like, this is a...
Yeah, Arjuna asked Krishna to show him his universal form. Universal form is, if anyone says, oh, I'm God, we're all God, then you can say, okay, if you're God, then show me your universal form. Yeah. And if they can't do it, then they're not God. So Krishna, he manifests, Arjuna sees all of creation, this form of Krishna, which is what a lot of people would understand God to be. Creator, destroyer, master of everything. Yeah. Prabhupada says that it's a godless display of opulence, which is quite interesting. Prabhupada, the conception of God as the supreme sweet, the supreme lover, that's actually God, and what Prabhupada says, that's a godless display. So just the power and the majesty isn't part of Krishna's true character,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
So that's because that's what. So Arjuna's basically like, I've heard of this form, this big scary form, isn't it? Like this big whole, because it's a form of Krishna as the universe, isn't it? Like everything consisted within the universe.
Yeah.
He says, "Show me this form," but why does he want to see the form? Because he's already accepted Krishna to be God.
Yeah.
There's
Prabhupada says he also wants Krishna to show it for other people's benefit, so they know. Okay, yeah, Krishna did show the universal form.
Yeah.
Arjuna was very terrified at seeing this form.
Yeah, it's scary as well. If you hear the descriptions, there's like fire coming out of his mouth, and he's eating all of the soldiers that are about to fight.
It's very vicious. Like, was it Oppenheimer when the atomic bomb went off? Yeah. He quoted the verse from this chapter that, time I am, death I am, the destroyer of all worlds.
Yeah.
They asked Srila Prabhupada once if Arjuna was a devotee of Krishna, then why wasn't he attracted by the universal form? Because it's a form of Krishna. Arjuna said, Srila Prabhupada said, he said, I have seen the universal form.
Wow.
And then he said, when he was in Calcutta in World War II, he said, when the bombs were dropping down, he said, I looked at them and I thought, everything is Krishna. This is also Krishna. But he said, but it's not very attractive. So the idea that even these fierce elements also have their source in the Supreme. So Arjuna didn't like that. So he said, please go back to, please can you show me your four-handed form?
He was begging as well. He said, and there was a point where he's like, so it's like Krishna's his friend, but he's just been shown this whole, like, all of the darkest aspects of the universe, everything, even the light aspects, all of the universe is like there before him. And all around, he can see all of the heads, and he can see all the people, he can see everything. It's like crazy for him. But he starts freaking out like anyone would, like panic, like, oh my gosh, what? And he just begs, he says, I'm sorry, Krishna, for any offenses I've caused. I didn't realize that this was you too. Like, I didn't realize that you were this whole universe. Like, what does he say? Things I've said in jest as friends, and
I can't believe we lied on the same bed together, and and I never thought of you like this.
Yeah. So he's like, just please, I've seen enough. Please take this away from my vision. It's too much. Like, it's too much for anyone to behold. Like, just take me back. Like, I just want to see you as you are, as Krishna, as my friend, because that's ultimately, like, Arjuna is friends with Krishna, So like Krishna, he first of all he goes, okay, you've seen enough, I agree, and he goes down into his four-armed, like, Narayan form, which is like kind of a level of understanding Krishna is like an expansion of Krishna is Narayan, who's more opulent and more kind of less intimate, you could say, like that, isn't it? And then finally he reveals his two-armed form, his flute playing form, isn't it? It mentions that, like, and you see, and he's there with Krishna again, with Arjuna again, and it's like it's this whole idea of, like, so many of us think that to worship God means to worship the universe, and the universe is speaking to me, and, like, in one sense, if you believe that, that's true, but really the perfection of knowing God, the perfection of knowing Krishna, the perfection of knowing the universe is to know him in his two-handed personal form, which is capable of having a relationship with you. So with Arjuna, he's got a relationship with Arjuna as a friend. So they joked and they laid on the same bed and they had fun together. And Arjuna got a lot of enjoyment about having that relationship with Krishna. But as soon as Arjuna saw Krishna as the whole universe, he was like, this is nasty. I don't actually want this. I don't want a relationship with the universe, because the universe contains everything.
Yeah, because Prabhupada says in the purport, Krishna changes from the universal form to the four-handed form of Narayan, and then to his own natural form of two hands. This indicates that the four-handed forms and other forms mentioned in the Vedic literature are all emanations of the original two-handed Krishna. He is the origin of all emanations. Krishna is distinct even from these forms, what to speak of the impersonal conception. As far as the four-handed forms of Krishna are concerned, it is stated clearly that even the most identical four-handed form of Krishna, which is known as Mahavishnu, who is lying in the cosmic ocean, from whose breathing so many innumerable universes are passing out and entering, is also an expansion of the Supreme. And Prabhupada also talks about this attractive form of Krishna with two hands holding a flute. Here there are hundreds and thousands of Vishnus, but for a devotee no form of Krishna is important but the original form, two-handed Shyamasundar. In the Brahma Samhita it is stated that those who are attached to the Shyamasundar form of Krishna in love and devotion can see him always within the heart and cannot see anything else.
It's just like the perfection. Shyamasundar.
Shyamasundar means beautiful blackish complexion.
Yeah, it's like black, like the colour of Krishna's complexion is like a monsoon cloud that's about to drop water. Like it's so full of water. I don't know if you've ever seen a monsoon cloud like that, but it's like this.
Yeah, and it's especially in Indian villages where it's hot and you rely on agriculture. When you see it, because it's also described, it's like a fresh rain cloud coming just as the summer is ending, so it's burning hot. And when you see this cloud, it also fills you with pleasure, excitement, and the relief. So Krishna's colour has all of these beautiful effects. That's why he's called Shyamasundar.
And he's got like ornaments as well.
So I don't know if I'm just thinking, because I don't think we have time to go through the 12th.
You don't think we got like maybe 10 minutes? Or we could just do the 12th next episode. It's up to you, really.
I think because there's some things in chapter 12 which are quite interesting. Like I particularly wanted to touch. Maybe we can just touch upon it now. Then, if you think that's okay, you're the boss. It's 12. The Krishna gives this succession of how to practice Bhakti Yoga according to your own capacity. It's in 12.8. He starts talking about it, and he says, "Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always without doubts." That means be completely absorbed in me. Then Krishna says, if you can't be completely absorbed in me, which is very rare, that takes practice, then he says, practice being absorbed in me. Practice what's called sadhana. So that's someone who's seriously practicing Bhakti Yoga. They're getting up early in the morning. You're chanting, you're doing your meditation, you're reading the Shastra, you have a strict yoga practice.
Yeah.
Then
and it can be at whatever level. This is the concept of sadhana, isn't it? Like you can practice. Like just if you want to just say like I'm going to chant around every day of Hare Krishna.
It does work like that. I mean, what Prabhupada says in his purport, that it means it's quite a more serious level than that.
It's like a high level of sadhana.
He talks about Mangalati, going to the temple.
Early morning, so be at the temple at 4:30. And
yeah, there are different prescribed rules and regulations one can follow. So this next level, apart from being absorbed, that means you're following the strict, regular lifestyle of Krishna consciousness as prescribed by the spiritual teacher. Yeah. Which for someone who's serious, like very serious, then that would be a very blissful lifestyle of chanting minimum of 16 rounds of japa.
Come to temple very regular.
Doing all the activities of Krishna consciousness, that can quite easily be done, even if one is working or has a job in this world. Yeah. But then Krishna says, look, if you can't do that, then that's okay also. Then you work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. So it means, okay, if you can't, chant that many rounds or do all the that kind of rigorous practice, then work, and with some of the money that you earn, give some of the money to help either spread Krishna consciousness, or one can engage their money in providing festivals for Krishna, addressing the deity.
Help build a nice temple, stuff like
connected
that.
to Krishna. Give it so other people can get spiritual food distributed. There's so many things like that. Krishna says if you can't do that, so if you can't sacrifice even some of your money, then he says try to act. He says, actually no, sorry, we skipped. there are many devotees who are engaged in propagation of Krishna consciousness. They require help. So then in text 11, he's saying, there he's saying also give some of your fruits in order to help the Krishna conscious movement. I'm just looking now because in text 9 he says, then follow regular principles of Bhakti Yoga and this way develop a desire to attain me. In text 10, if you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me, because you're working for me, you'll come to the perfect stage. This is one who cannot practice the principles of Bhakti Yoga and the guidance of a spiritual master can still be drawn to this perfectional stage by working for the Supreme Lord. How to do this work has all been explained in the 55th verse of the 11th chapter. One should be sympathetic to the propagation of Krishna consciousness. There are many devotees who are engaged in the propagation of Krishna consciousness and they require help. So, even if one cannot directly practice the regular principles of Bhakti Yoga, one can try and help such work. So you engage in service, you put your shoulder behind the wheel of the Sankirtan movement.
Yeah.
I wonder what that verse of...
And then this one.
Then that is to help.
If you can't do it, then give up the fruits. Is that what it says? Yeah.
Then it's... there are many descriptions of sacrifices and special functions. So then one has to... Yeah, so that's it. Then one gives some of their money to something. Whether it's to some sacrifice in some way.
Yeah.
So even if you have to give in some charity...
Yeah.
Just at least practice giving up the fruits of your results. Don't just... This selflessness needs to be cultivated somehow or other. It's described, if you can't do that, then join the army or something.
Yeah, serve, like give up sacrifice, basically.
Yeah, what locks us into this world is trying to be selfish, trying to enjoy.
And we talked about that in the first episode, like the demoniac.
So let's cultivate selflessness. Yeah. You know, that opens up possibilities to spiritual life. So Krishna says, if you can't do this, do this. If you can't do that, do this. If you can't do that, do this.
It's interesting. So you could read this. You could really study this chapter 12, because you can read all the verses and purports in chapter 12 in about 1 or 2 hours. Like it's not a big chapter at all.
Well, you can read all the verses in 10 minutes.
Yeah, 5-10 minutes if you just wanted to go through. But what was that? I don't know if we have time to go to the verse. You said 11. He said something about the last verse of chapter 11.
Oh yeah. Was it 11:50? Sorry, I've skipped.
It's that one, isn't it?
Is yours 54?
Yeah. No, maybe not.
I thought it was 55. My dear Arjun, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from contamination of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to all living beings, he certainly comes to me.
Very nice.
So, and then the purport, Prabhupada explains that, for example, one may be engaged in business, but to transform that activity into Krishna consciousness, one has to do business for Krishna. If Krishna is the proprietor of the business, then Krishna should enjoy the profit of the business. If a businessman is in possession of thousands and thousands of dollars, and if he has to offer all this to Krishna, he can do it. This is work for Krishna. Instead of constructing a big building for his sense gratification, he can construct a nice temple for Krishna, and he can install the deity of Krishna and arrange for the deity's service. This is Krishna karma. Like one of my first, when I became a Hare Krishna, one of my first services was working in our vegan cheesecake factory, and I was thinking, I wanted to be a monk, and why am I working in this cheesecake factory? But on the wall was this huge picture of Radha Shyama-Sundar, huge picture of Radha Krishna.
In the factory?
Yeah. And this was... So I realized, we're doing this for Krishna. You know, all the profits would go help Krishna. It didn't really work in the end. But it was, it was an idea that Chakranath did with his inheritance. Okay, let's set up a business for Krishna. You know, so we can do these things. You do what you were going to do anyway, but do it for Krishna, and that purifies it and makes it yoga.
Yeah.
Like that.
Very nice. I think we have run out of time, though.
44 minutes and 51 seconds.
Roughly.
Okay.
Yeah, but hopefully we got... I guess we squeezed chapter 12 in, but it was just to finish off this like little episode nicely, isn't it? Round it up.
Yeah, and again, it's
we can go back through.
Hopefully, it's
the
an
Gita
extra
in the future as well. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, we're always going through the Gita.
It's true.
But this is maybe to help aid, especially some of you who are doing the Bhagavad Gita course. You know, you might have questions that come from us fools fumbling through and trying to talk about Gita, and then you can ask Tarakanath, will give you the right answer.
Sure. But no, thanks for listening, everyone.
Hi, Krishna.
See you next episode.
Shikshana Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Shikshana Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda